Every single company right now is trying to figure out how they can rebuild their business in the agentic era. So today I want to bring you an example that is coming directly from HubSpot, which is a company of over 8,000 employees, as well as my own expertise in implementing over 20 plus AI workspaces in the past 6 months, from small teams up to enterprise teams or marketing teams specifically. So I want to show you this specific article that came from the CMO of HubSpot itself, and I want to read that together with you and add a couple of comments throughout the articles. Most marketing leaders are trying to fit AI into their existing organization. New AI assistant tools, agents, same old team boxes. It means you are bolting AI onto a structure that was designed to do one thing: coordinate people. This is a mistake. If you integrate AI into how a team works, you will get minimal results. I believe you have to rethink how the team works, how it's structured, and what its core skills are. The org chart stops being a tree of functions and it becomes a system that produces output. And a system needs a different shape than a hierarchy. So already here, this is quite interesting in terms of how you can think of AI within your business, generally speaking. So in here, they mentioned that the focus is not on the organization and organizing different people and try to give AI to a single person, but it's more about creating an actual system that has some kind of input, and then from the input we would have an output. And in the middle, what we have is we have the actual system, and AI is essentially this system over here that is given by people, and people just need to give the right inputs in order to get the right outputs. So, how does the system work? Most people assume this model is about replacing marketers with agents. It isn't. AI should remove the coordination task, the status meetings, the handoffs, the circling back, and concentrate humans at the point where they actually add value. The humans don't empty out, their work is elevated. Fewer people coordinated other people, more marketers are directing systems, agents, and practicing their crafts. So again, over here, very important aspect is the removal or any kind of coordination or any kind of circling back and communication layer that we have. And this is especially true for big organization where we have like a lot of different layers. So we have like an individual coordinator, then we have the manager, then we have the manager of the manager. And if we want to execute on something, we need to pass over all these different layers in order to get something approved. Meanwhile, what we can do right now and what is our focus right now is removing all these coordination tasks so that we are an individual contributor and we can do more work essentially without having to coordinate more people. So in here it presents the actual agentic marketing or organization where we have leadership, organization, orchestration, execution, and then context. The most important thing over here is context, and I repeat that over again in my content, but that is also what the one of the biggest company in the world in marketing is actually mentioning here. This is the biggest unlock available to you right now, and it's the one almost nobody has built. Pre-AI, your intelligence lived in people's head. What the market actually wants, how a campaign really gets shipped here, which plays work and which quietly died. When someone left, it left with them. Context is a system that captures that intelligence, market knowledge, how the team operates, what's working, what isn't, and makes it readable by every human and every agent above it. It updates automatically from the work that you do. So context here becomes really, really fundamental for the agent for obviously two reasons. On one side, the agent can reference this context and actually execute against this context, and then each person can actually use that context to improve what they know as well as achieve better work. Now, the thing about the context, which is really important here, is the fact that it's divided into these two elements. Is divided into an element that is an ingestion element, and it's divided into an element that is related to the work element. So the ingestion element is something more related to the fact where I have a call with someone and that call turns into insights that we can pass and we can add into our context that would help improve our the work or improve the decisions that we need to make. And then instead, the work itself is I need to ship a campaign, for example, and by shipping a campaign, I create I create an output, and that output becomes a layer of the context that we had. And more importantly, here, the output is not actually the most important thing, but how I came to the output is the actual most important element here. And this specific element over here, the process which we create the actual output, is what is the most important aspect here. Because as we mentioned before, everything was in people's head. So if we are able to extract their thought process and understand what are the different elements that make up that thought process, then we can give that and we can create that into a document that the agent can read and use. So yeah, that is the actual read over here. Everything else reads from this layer and writes back to it. Get it right, and every layer above gets smarter. Get it wrong, and you automated your own confusion. That's the gotcha with this model. Marketing teams are used to documenting these artifacts. Is why remote teams have a unique advantage when it comes to AI. Everything they do is an artifact. So regarding this specific thing, you can think about any kind of communication that you are having with other people. So a call is an artifact, a message is an artifact, a document is actually an artifact, obviously. And all these documents become context that the AI can use and reason to come to your own understanding of how you do a specific process. I will go more in depth on the technical side and the explanation on how this can actually be done very soon with a specific video. But keep in mind the focus here is getting the different artifacts and then giving them to an LLM that can actually translate those into something that an LLM can always read. This is called an LLM wiki, but I will go over in the future. Some notes. This is real work. This isn't Notion tidied up. It's real data engineering, CRM, analytics, support tickets, Slack docs, call transcript, brand guidelines, stitch into something queryable. Most orgs see shared knowledge base and budget for a wiki. The honest framing is this is infrastructure and infrastructure as a cost. For me, it's an investment worth making. So also in this specific instance, a lot of people maybe start to think that we are just building text files when we are working with agentic tools and different things like that. But the real kind of thing here is more like data engineering. We need to understand what are the different elements of the data that we need to merge and understand what is the best way to merge these different data in a way where it doesn't contradict each other, because as you mentioned here, if we get it wrong, we create even more confusion. And as well as understand what are all the different kinds of data and what is the best way to actually have that stored for a specific brand. So yeah, someone has to run it and it goes still like the wiki it replaced. The answer can be the team. It has to be a named owner, most likely AI ops or RevOps, with senior strategy curating what is true. Layer one is a new discipline investment for marketing. And this is what we are actually doing right now with a couple of teams where we are helping them extracting the knowledge for them, more like an AI ops kind of role. But obviously, an external person doesn't have a full understanding about the full marketing practice or whatever kind of practices that are present for a business here. So that is the general approach. It has to be deterministic, not vibes. If the same question returns a different answer on Tuesday that it did on Monday, you don't have an intelligent layer, you have a slot machine. This means declare definitions, not just store learnings. Campaigns means 5 different things across most companies. The substrate has to fix the vocabulary before it stores knowledge. This is again another concept of data engineering. So if we think about different use cases and different work that we are doing across different companies, it's quite important to actually define what are the key files that we always need to have for a specific team. So if we think about an agency work, for example, we always need to know about our clients, who the client is, who are the stakeholders of the clients, who is their ICP, or what do they sell, who is the target person that they sell to, what are their services, and then a couple of additional files that might be what are the decisions that we made about the engagement that we have. Do we have some open questions? Do we have key elements that we need to discuss for calls? And all these different elements are what creates the actual structure of what we are looking to build. Don't ingest anything, start with 3 to 5 artifacts. A lean trusted core beats a giant pile of noise. So one has to decide what is the trusted output and what's the chatter. The system slowly positions itself with its own bad output. Layer one is someone with taste, who understand what should make it into the layer and what should be routed away. The key here is what is taste and how can we define taste. And if you think about that, taste is what actually makes an output good. Generally speaking, a lot of the work that is done right now with AI is around the coding. And when it comes to coding, at the end of the day, coding is something that is solved because if you think about build an app and a process like that, you either build a functioning app or you don't build a functioning app. And so this is something that can be verified pretty easily in terms of is as the result being achieved by the AI once we type this specific prompt. Meanwhile, if we type something like create a marketing campaign, the output that we have over here is not something that we can have right away, but it's something that it takes more time in order to get the results out of that. So the output of is this campaign actually good is not something that we can define beforehand, but with AI, we need to find a way in which we can create this actual rubric of what actually makes a campaign good. And this is what taste is actually looking like in non-deterministic work, such as marketing, such as lead generation, all these different things like that. Yeah, the full layer for a larger company includes more than just marketing. Customer knowledge actually lives in sales and CS. Products owns the roadmap. Finance owns the unit economic. If context is marketing all in, it's missing most of the company intelligence on day one. The refined version, context, is an enterprise asset that marketing reads from and contributes to, not a thing marketing builds in a corner. So yeah, again, the full process of what we are looking to do over here is not something that we need to build out of for a single department, but generally speaking, something that we are building out for a lot of different departments because the focus is always how can sales interact with customer success and how customer success can give inputs to sales as well as how marketing can give inputs to sales and customer success at the same time, uh, as well as how can finance can give inputs to sales, customer success, marketing, all at the same times without having a lot of different communication and back and forth. And this is what actually means to remove the coordination task over here. Layer 2, execution. Agents add volume, humans at the bar. Execution is where the work gets made. It's a mix of agents running in parallel and a number of genuine craft people. Why crafts people and not marketers? Because good enough won't cut it when everyone has the same models. AI can draft most of a thing. The gap between forgettable and unmissable is taste, judgment, and a real understanding of the customer, and that gap is widening, not closing. So this is so important because right now if you think about content, for example, everyone can write content really, n- but not everyone can actually have some level of taste or level of judgment or level of understanding about the specific topics that they are talking about. And this is also the reason why, on my side, I'm trying to do more on the try to understand a couple of specific things and try to give some reasonings, because at the end of the day, AI cannot give you your own insights. AI cannot create insights out of the blue. You create your own insights with the knowledge that you have about the market, and that becomes a defensible asset that you can use for your team, and then you can use also for the content that you create, as well as other different things. In the end of the day, all the context that you are able to create becomes the moat that your business has against other businesses, because that is data that you only have internally, and other people cannot have access to that specific data for you. So if you think about marketing campaigns, you can have an idea about whether a marketing campaign actually worked or not. Your competitors can only see that marketing campaign on Facebook ads, for example. Some notes: agents enable humans to do elevated work. Humans don't bolt on the final 20% like a last screw. They frame the work before a single agent runs, they brief the angle, the bar, and they exercise discernment all the way through. The split isn't a sequence, it's humans owns the brief and the standard, and agent do the volume in the middle. Put the human judgment at the start and at the end, and not just at the end. So I think this is more related to how we should be thinking about working with AI, generally speaking, and not just a single way of how marketing teams can do that. So the process for working with AI most of the time should be: we work on a plan, we make sure that we go in depth into the specific thing that we are trying to execute. The agent is actually the focus on the execution layer, and then we are in charge of the last part for the review. So in this way, we actually have the split that I mentioned over here. This 20% is the part where we need to put a lot of effort into understanding what we need to do. This 80% is the part that the agent is actually focused on. So we don't have to click the buttons anymore. We don't have to do the research anymore. That is a task that is related for the agent. But the thing that is important on us is the review. And um, if you can see over here, everyone can actually click some buttons, everyone can actually write something, but not everyone can actually think about planning and think about how to review effectively the work that comes from an agent. And this is the actual way of working with AI that is becoming really, really important. Some of the work doesn't compress at all. A whole category of marketing isn't an output an agent can draft. It's a relationship. Distribution through events, partnership, influencer community, and the founder's brand. Physical touchpoints, activation, retail, and the room, they were never digitally instrumented, and so never entered the feedback loop. This is the beauty about AI, is that in some things it can simplify a lot of stuff, but on the flip side it can amplify everything that AI can actually not touch. So that is why right now a lot of events are very, very strong, because a lot of people know that all the posts that they can see on LinkedIn doesn't actually reflect the true experience that they could have through an event. And this is something that an AI cannot think about. There is no way an AI can actually solve for create a beautiful event or something like that. That is something that only people can actually do that. So layer 2 doesn't mean agents replace humans. It means that where possible, agents augment humans, allowing them to elevate their work. However, humans are determining the prompts, setting the guidelines, and enriching the work. So yeah, that is, as I mentioned before, it's not about replacement. It's more about augmentation. Keep in mind here that if you are the type of person that is not like that does some kind of like heavy execution work, that is where some of the work that you are doing on your end might be at risk. And what you need to start focusing on is more on the planning and the reviewing side of things, which is the most important thing. Layer 3, orchestration. The role I think matters the most. Your organization isn't a tree anymore, it's a living system producing output. Someone has to run the system, make routing decisions, monitor what agents are producing, make sure they are reading the right context, and feed the result back into layer one. This is the newest role, and I think the most important one to get right. It's probably not a role, it could be true. There is an orchestrator who designs the system and decides what flows where, which decisions stay human, which get an agent drafted for human approval, and which run fully autonomously. And there is an operator who lives in a system day to day, QAs the agents and improves them. Design versus run. Most teams will need both, even if one person wears both hats early on. This is very, very interesting because this is something that we are trying to do right now with designing systems for different companies. And the thing that I mention most of the time is that as we start developing any kind of system in a marketing organization or any kind of organization, we generally start with a build that is semi autonomous. So we have a, like, let's take an example of a campaign planning. So campaign planning could be a very big process, right? We could have something like a research. We could have something like define objectives, objections, objectives. Then we would have something like creatives. We could have something like metrics. So there are a lot of, and then we could have something like, let's say, setting up Facebook ads, for example. There are a lot of process over here, and obviously here not all the process needs to be done by the agents directly, and so every single person for every single process, which I remember is this part where we pass an input, where we let it run through a system, and then we have an output, needs to do some kind of decision over here, needs to decide whether the process is something that the agents runs fully, and you have just a view of what is the review. So you do a review part on your side. Maybe you want something that is fully human and you don't want agent focusing on that. But before that, maybe the objectives and the metrics could be something that the agent drafts, and you have the control over this. So this means it creates a document, you review the document, and then you say this is good, this is not good based on that. So the whole focus is that. And yeah, the other thing is more about the operator. In this specific thing, I think it's quite important that the person is actually working on the system and understanding the process. What we are doing right now with a lot of different companies is we generally are in charge of the orchestrator and the design of the systems. And then for the operator part, what we are trying to do is we are trying to give that out to the different users within an organization. We let them run the systems, and then we implement QA, and we implement visualization of how a process was run, so that we can actually have an analysis of that and make sure that everything was correct and have an understanding of the full process. So in this area, I don't think you will need two different people that are focused on the process, especially if you have different people that are not expert in the thing that they need to execute on. But it's definitely important to have some kind of layer of observability that you add into the system in order to understand whether an agent does what you want it to do, the output of an agent is up to standard with what you decide, as well as having some kind of feedback loop that is added within the system. Where the real decisions live. The hard part of orchestration isn't routed task, is the delegation logic. What is allowed to run on its own, what gets escalated, what never leaves a human hand. That's a deliberate design choice, not a default, and it belongs in this layer. So yeah, as I mentioned over here, the goal is define this, and it all is defined based on the objectives of an organization. So if, for example, we are working with a marketing agency and their focus is I want to have 10x the amount of clients, I want to keep the same team and scale and reduce the operational complexity to almost zero. Our focus here is how do we turn everything to agent focus as fast as possible in the process, and that will require a specific roadmap. Meanwhile, if we need to do something different here, where the organization is more of a like luxury organization, they probably want to have more refined control over what goes out, so that they are sure that the quality is up to standard with what they create. So yeah, all of that is really it could be different based on the different organization. Layer 4, leadership, direction, not coordination. New leadership job is to set direction for a system, refine it, and get output from it. You stop coordinating people and start steering an engine. You decide what the system should optimize towards, make the judgment calls it can't, and feed the strategy back into context so the whole thing inherits your point of view. Some notes. Is your current CMO even equipped to lead this? One stat speaks to this. Only 50% of CEOs believe their CMO is AI savvy. Most marketing leaders were selective for their ability to coordinate people and manage the org chart effectively. This model asks them to direct systems instead. So, yeah, as you can see here, there could be a very different flip in the way you operate here that is not focused on directly operating people, but instead focusing on operating systems. And it could be generally worrying for some teams that are very big and need to understand how to do this. But yeah, the general focus here is you start building the system, and then once you have something built out, you let the people operate on the system and see what is the output looking like on your seat as in the management, and then take out decisions to whether that is actually correct or wrong. Why is leadership the human only layer? Not because leaders shouldn't use agent, they absolutely should, include for strategy and brand work. Is human only because someone has to own the taste the system optimized towards and carry the judgment calls when the model is confidently wrong. You can automate the work, you can't automate accountability for it. I think in this article a lot of things comes back to these two things: taste and judgment calls. So, and if you think about that, to be honest, those are the only thing that the AI cannot do. It cannot have the same judgment that you could have about your own business, or judgment is something that you can teach. And the taste is also the same. It cannot have the taste on what good looks like in your specific eyes, in your manager's eyes, or in another co-worker's eyes. But yeah, keep in mind all of these things can be taught provided that you work on the context layer. So yeah, this is it. Let's go to the last part. Push back against this model. I hear the following two, which I felt were fair answer and waited to answer. Is this actually new, or is it just good marketing process with better tool? Fair, but a lot of this is what great market is has always demanded: clear thinking, real craft, tight feedback loop. What generally new is the substrate underneath it. A shared intelligent layer that survives turnover was simply not possible before. The role change as a unit of work shift from a person does the task to a person directs a system that does the task. So our focus right now becomes more about as AI ops people, it becomes more about building the system that builds the system. And then for the executor is directing the system to actually doing the task. And in turn, those roles make the system smarter. Today, the most intelligent market doesn't make the entire team smarter just by working. In this system, they do. So yeah, and this all comes back to the concept of context that we mentioned before. Where do entry-level marketing learn this graph in the middle content? The theory is if you remove the rungs people used to climb, the entry work where judgment is quietly built, you risk a generation that can operate agents without understanding what is good from great. My work in view, the entry path shift from do the task to operate system and build the context. So yeah, again over here, it all comes back to the context thing. So this is what I got you for today. I think this is a really interesting article, and there are a lot of really important topics in how we plan about working with AI and what are the decisions that we need to make as business owners in a world with AI. Namely, build your context, understand what good looks like for your own specific business, extract information from people, and try to understand what good looks like, and then build the orchestration layer and try to understand how the different processes can be orchestrated between each other. Now, if you need help in executing any of this thing, you can find the first link in the description, and then we can have a chat about that together. With that said, that's everything on my side. Talk to you soon. Hope you like this video. Bye bye.